Welcome to the Great Distraction.
Hello everyone, this is The Great Distraction, and today the topic of discussion is mail order brides. My name is Ben, and with me today are my co-host Thomas.
Hey.
Rick.
Hey, everybody.
And Glenn.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us. The Great Distraction is a podcast that focuses on a vast and random range of topics, and we hope that each episode leaves you with, if nothing else, a little something to ponder. As always, we'd love to hear from you. Questions, comments, and topic suggestions are always welcome. You can contact us on Facebook or email anytime at greatdistractionpodcast@gmail.com. Yeah, mail order brides. This is another topic. I have no idea where we came up with this, and as far as I know, none of us sitting here are considering the mail order, going with a mail order bride, or attempting to get one rather. But I don't know though.
Hey, don't write out any of your options.
I mean, yeah. After learning more about this and seeing what they're marketing out there, I can see how it can be an easy hook for certain types of guys. Anyway. We'll get into it. So starting off a little bit of history, because I thought this was kind of interesting. Apparently, the concept of mail order brides started in the 1800s. And this is, I'm sorry, let's take a step back. This is with respect to mail order brides in America. Every country has dealt with this in different ways, and you'll see why there was a genuine reason for quote-unquote mail order brides here after I go into it. In the early 1800s, there were Asian workers as well as American workers that went out west to the new frontier to do all different kinds of, stake their claims, get rich, establish land, all kinds of stuff. All kinds of work was out there as that new frontier was being built up and discovered, so to speak, and conquered as they continued west. And as those people were all moving over there for work, rich or poor, they were all men. That was all that was going over there and breaking ground, so to speak, on the westward expansion. So, naturally, they got, after living out in the West with nothing but a bunch of guys, they were getting a little lonely out there. So there was a natural need for females and wives at the time. And as bad as it is to say nowadays, women have historically been a commodity. And to a lesser extent, and unfortunately, are still used that way today in many ways. For the example, sex sells, right? It's usually a beautiful girl selling to either other girls.
It's not some hairy bald guy playing basketball.
Yeah, it's usually not guys at all, right?
So they don't have that many Instagram followers.
No. Yeah. Oh man, don't get me on the Instagram. That blows me away. There are girls out there who just have nice butts and have millions of Instagram followers.
Well, nowadays all you gotta do is be slutty and you can get followers. You don't have
that's what I'm saying. You gotta show your ass off a little bit.
She's kind of cute, but yeah, look at her bent over in that fucking leotard.
Yeah, if Glenn wears a thong, I mean, I don't know, man.
I don't know, man.
I'd subscribe to that.
Well,
depends on what angle the camera's at.
High low.
They always shoot down, right?
Yeah. I want to shoot up on that one.
Yeah, you gotta show off the butt cheek cleavage there, buddy.
Oh shit!
Are those boobs or butts?
What kind of thong would you wear, Glenn? I'm imagining zebra prints.
Zebra prints, yes.
I was waiting for him to say a pretty one.
A little bit of lace.
So he can feel pretty. Yeah, yes, absolutely. So at the time, these guys are stranded out here with no women, and they started writing letters to their churches and also published personal ads in magazines and newspapers. So I mean, it was just like the personal section of.
Is that where classifieds came from?
Yeah, maybe. I was going to say Craigslist, but
right.
Back in the day, and apparently interested women would write back and they would send pictures. So, and I'm thinking too, these had to have been only.
They would send pictures in the 1800s.
That's what I was going to say.
They had photography then.
Yeah, they did.
Sure, it wasn't a drawing.
Probably
yeah, photography.
Charcoal drawing on the wall.
Charcoal drawing. Yeah. I think it was to get a Titanic. Draw me like one of your French girls. No. So, what I'm thinking is the only ones that would be writing back with pictures had money to be taking photographs, because I don't think it was cheap back then. It was kind of an upper class thing to have yourself photographed, right?
Right. It's like eating sweets back then.
Yeah, it's a lot of things like that. Yeah. So I'm thinking like. Not many. These women had to have come from some money or in their family or whatever to have put together stuff like that. But
there could have been a dowry involved as well.
actually the dude could have been sending money back to get, assuming you weren't one of the poor workers, because yeah.
What else would you spend your money on if you got a stake a claim
Booze,
to property?
man.
Yeah, I don't even think
Guns,
there
booze.
wasn't even brothels set up or anything out there. So unless the drugs went with them, like opium tents and stuff like that, it was alcohol, drugs, or food. I mean, or your house, if you're building yourself up.
Well, I know even when the trains were being built, when the railroad was moving its way west, one of the first things that came with it were brothels and whores.
Mm-hmm. Well, because they never need for it. Look, that's a huge business for them to, the maitre d', is that what they were called that ran? No, anyway, the woman that ran the brothel.
Madam?
The madam. They would see, hell, there's a business opportunity. All right, girls, pack it up. We're moving, sell what they've got here and go out there and open up shop and dominate out there.
And as I understand it, the brothel owners and operators had most of the money in the community.
A lot of times, yeah.
To get the infrastructure done in the town, they would often borrow the money from the prostitutes because they were the only ones that had any of the money.
Yep, that was an amazing concept. I just saw that on I think I was watching Adam Ruins Everything on YouTube or whatever, and he did one on brothels and how prostitution is probably responsible for more of the established community and cities than people give credit for. Mm-hmm. And it's like that's not something nuts to think about, dude. It's like
more so that they couldn't legally own property, but they're building city hall and everything for you, but they can't own it.
Yeah.
But they've got all the money to control it. I digress.
That's
weird. That's
different
subject for another
that
time.
might actually be a good topic to go into. The history of prostitution in general. And anyway, so interested women, like I mentioned, would write back, send pictures, and the courtship ensued via letters until ultimately the woman would agree to move out west and marry a man she never met. Kind of weird, but okay, that's the way it goes. I guess
like an arranged marriage.
Yeah, and people still do it today, like with guys in jail, right? Women will do that. They never get to meet them. I guess they can go for visitation rights, but I mean, you can't really actually spend too much time with that person, and then they'll marry him for conjugal visits or the little apartments that they give them for the weekend or whatever on good behavior, and then you can finally see each other. So I guess people still kind of do that today here in this country. But
yeah, I think it was really common back then. But even now, like I used to work with some folks that whose parents were from like the Philippines or whatever, and they were really hardcore on getting their children to marry other Filipinos. So they would try to arrange things very similar to this, like, oh, so and so's cousin's still back at home. You guys would get along, you should marry them.
Yeah. And I was reading, too, a lot of times it was a way for women to escape from something.
I'm sure,
Either she was a widow or she was divorced and then shunned in society or whatever the case may be. It was a way to bail out of your town and go,
Had a kid out of wedlock.
Something like that, yeah.
I'd have to move to California.
Or even before that, they couldn't work and they couldn't own property. So what do they do when they become adults? And if you wait too long to get married...
You become an old maid.
Right, and then there's the stigma that comes along with that. So
nobody wants you anymore or something like that.
It was more of a business transaction, I imagine, than... they didn't marry for love back then very often.
The Asian men was basically the same thing, but they worked through mail order agencies, which brought them wives over from their country. And I believe that most of the Asians at that time were Japanese, but I'm not sure on that. I didn't look too far into it.
The railroad workers, I believe, were Chinese.
Yeah. Okay, so that's all. Everything I read on this just said Asian men. They didn't specify from what country. And I did, like I said, it was just kind of a side note anyway. But one of the things I thought was kind of funny is that being how the laws were back there, and then in the U.S., you could not immigrate over a woman unless she was your wife. So they would marry, basically via letters and contract and signing or whatever, or via mail. And then she could be brought over once they were actually legally married by the U.S. law standards or whatever. So that coined the term picture brides, because all you had of your bride was a picture of her, and that's it. You never met this woman that you're now married to, so that you can bring her over. But I guess when you have no other options,
right? I guess
that's a picture bride is good and is better than nothing, and especially with the hopes that the picture bride would become the real bride, and as soon as you got all the paperwork through and they got her shipped over from whatever country you were from. Anyways.
Man, what a gamble.
Right.
Did they have to be from your country of origin as well?
I have no idea if there were any requirements for that or whatever. All it said was, again, it just said Asian men. It didn't even specify what I was... And I think it was a Wikipedia, part of the Wikipedia post for mail order brides. Just a small blurb on the history part, and I think that's where I got that information from. And I didn't want to focus too much on history anyway from it. It was just, I just thought it was kind of interesting. Like, well, how long does this? How far does this go back? And like, Yeah, before there was, and ultimately the point I wanted to make with that is that mail order, quote unquote, brides, quote unquote, mail order brides, it probably isn't what most people imagine. It's not a booklet catalog where you're like, this one, oh cool, this one, yeah, send me this one. So I'll
Can I have her but taller?
That's right. I'll take 2 of these tomorrow. I mean, it wasn't really like that, and today it still isn't. And that was kind of where I wanted to allude with that history. It's we'll get into how it works here, but for the most part, it's very much and there are mail order husbands too, by the way, just far, far, far less of them.
Where do they go?
Go.
Yeah.
That would be like American women looking for men from other countries. That would be a mail order husband, right? So
wow.
That would be like if some girl really wanted a guy from Germany.
Yeah.
Then she could find I don't know if there's I'm not saying that there's a company or organization or agency in Germany that helps find connect that, but maybe there is, but so there are mail order husbands. It's just very, very rare. And I mean, I guess I could see that too, because like, what if you're a single woman, maybe you're older and you want a younger guy. I mean, the same type of
if you're wealthy, you can do whatever you want.
Exactly, the same type of shit that these guys, when we get into it, that these guys try and do with these foreign women. I'm sure that there's American.
I'm 67 and I want a 22-year-old 10.
Bingo, yeah. But I just want somebody to take care of me, my companion, right?
Yeah. Wanted to cook my clothes in a bikini.
Yeah, it's great when we get into some of this. If you're curious about watching some of the stuff that we watch, I found 2. There's a bunch more when you start looking for them on YouTube. More will pop up as suggested videos or whatnot. But to start you off, if you're curious about watching some short documentaries, I think most of them are about 40 to an hour and a half long or whatever. There's one called 10 Days Equal Wife, Love Translated, and there's another one that was really popular a few years ago called Love Me. And again, if you Googled or YouTube those, you can find many, many more. And it's really interesting. You'll also find a lot of news entities around the world. I found more from the UK than others. But anyway, have done half-hour specials or 45-minute specials on this concept because a lot of people are curious about it. You hear one person in your community, like, Tom down the street got himself a mail order bride. All of a sudden, everybody on the street knows. And because it's something you're kind of curious about. It's like, how the hell does that work? Well, that's kind of how I think we came up to this topic in the first place. It was just like, wow, how does that work? That doesn't make any sense. And I think I had seen a documentary on it a long time ago, and it kind of stuck with me with, wow, what a weird mentality. But anyway, mail order brides, even if they're not mail order per se, like literally mail order, and they're not, but that's still what they're coined to, as they're coined, the term is used today. So even if it's not like it used to sound or it sounds, that's still what they call them. Most of them are from Thailand, the Philippines, and the biggest industry by far right now is in Russia and the Ukraine, specifically in Odessa. And this part I did not know until I started watching some of the more recent videos. And actually, Thomas and I were talking about it before we started recording. Apparently, being marketed to other countries and factually, apparently, because like I said, I haven't been there, so I don't know for sure, but being marketed to other countries and to America, some of them, Odessa is listed as having some of the most beautiful women, period, and a huge majority of them. Apparently, they have an abundance of a very beautiful young women there, and there is some facts to back up part of those claims. Obviously, when you watch these documentaries, they're going to sell that to you because some of the documentaries are I can't think of the term I'm looking for, like a partnership with the agencies that are hosting these mail order brides.
It's like propaganda.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like propaganda, yes, but there are a lot of other ways that you can check out the information about Odessa, and from the stuff I was looking into from that, yeah, there are some claims that there is like an abundance of beautiful women there. But like I said, some facts that kind of back that up. Women do outnumber men by a significant amount. Now, we heard different numbers. Tom said he heard...
It was about 4 to 1 is what I kept
4 to 1
hearing,
is what he heard. I heard 2 to 1, and then I found another one that said it was 5 to 4. So, I mean, I don't know. I guess what you can take from that is that there's more women than men, but we couldn't really determine how many more, and I didn't check populations. And on top of that, I don't really know how accurate do they have a census? Since I don't know about that type of politics that they have over there, I didn't know if any of that information would even be believable or true or whatever. Anyway, so suffice it to say, women outnumber men by a lot there.
Supposedly,
yeah.
Supposedly. That's what the agency tells us.
Yeah.
Depending on your Google search.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, exactly. Depending on what source I ran into. And apparently, again, more supposedly is here from what we're reading, but and from what I saw from these documentaries, there's a lot of issues with Russian and Ukrainian men. Apparently, their life expectancy is like 58. They have a lot of problems with drinking, and there's a lot of complaints that they cheat a lot after marriage. They kind of have like and I don't know any of these people, so I'm cautious to how much I apply these things we were reading. But from what we were being told in our research, the way they treat women is not good. We could just say that. So
it seemed like it was a very male-dominated community. I think most of Russia in general. So you got to think of how they treat their women in general. It's a lot like the Middle Eastern ways that men treat women. So there's that into it, but also with all the confrontations with small wars and battles and stuff that have gone on in that region of the world, a lot of the men have been killed off.
Yep.
I was reading something that said there was almost 50% decline in men in that part of the world because the people who did get educations, like Rick was saying earlier, they moved. They went somewhere else. But because of war and the other things that were going on with military, a lot of men have been killed there. So there's just not... It's just an offset and balance. It's one of the only places in the world that seems to have a really strange offset balance with men to women ratio.
And I'd say the stereotype that they're treating the women poorly is relative to our current concept of that behavior in a relationship. I'd say that was a pretty common behavior between a man and a woman's relationship in history or historically.
you mean like American history?
Well, just
across the
general
world.
history,
Across the world,
If you look back 100 years in
Yeah.
the U.S. or in Russia or in Africa or in
the more
name
primitive
it.
or the more third world you get, the worse women get treated.
Well, another
Right,
thing,
more masculine warrior type
Yeah.
cultures, it's very common.
yeah, another thing too that I noticed is when I started saying a lot of stuff about that area of Ukraine, I did a little bit of research and I did find one documentary talked more about the country. And because of the decline in men in the population, more women have had to step up to just do general tasks,
Yes,
jobs,
like
and
run the country,
like run
as
the
well
country.
as- yeah.
So there are a lot of very educated women there,
Yep.
and they're doing every job that men were doing that are no longer there. So somebody has to keep the country running. So they are keeping. So the education level is not like it's a third world country of a bunch of stupid people.
No,
they're
no,
just
not at
left
all.
over.
Not at
I mean,
all.
these are very smart people who are actually going to college because they're the only ones left to do it.
Yeah, and they have nothing else to do, really.
Exactly.
I mean, they expand their education.
Yeah. So if you think about it in any aspect, here you've got a small culture of people who are mainly women who are educated, independent, living their lives, and the basic thing that people do is procreate, and there's no men there.
Yep.
So it creates a giant vacuum of other things and people and entities to come in, just like these mail order companies that
Yep.
come in and try to exploit it.
And here's a nice statistic I've got for that, too. Apparently, 25,000 women per year sign up for one of the over 600 international dating websites in Russia and the Ukraine. That's a lot of people.
Say that again, please.
25,000 a year sign up for one of the 600, or they might go to more. Apparently, there's 600 international dating websites in Russia and Ukraine.
So this isn't like Odessa's Tinder. This is for international dating to essentially be a mail order bride. One
Well,
of
they bring
600
the men
sites.
there. That was kind of the difference. Okay, so that was one of the things I wanted to emphasize in the beginning too, by saying it's not like literally mail order bride. The men get carded there.
Mm-hmm.
So when they get carded there from anywhere in the world,
Okay.
wherever they are.
Okay.
And the documentaries we were watching, I mean, Australia, UK, the US, those were the three big ones
Mm-hmm.
of where the men came from. But yeah, they'll take anybody from anywhere. I mean, China, Hong Kong, or Japan, anywhere, wherever. If you got the money to pay
Right.
for their services and hire the agency and pay all the fees and stuff, which we'll
Translator
get into
and everything else you need.
which we'll get into all that.
I saw
And
that one. That was pretty sad.
then then you're able to go out there and try your hand at I guess trying to either get scammed or woo one of these girls that's a third of your age. Another at the point to add to that I saw mentioned quite a few times is that many of the Russian and Ukrainian women say that Russian and Ukrainian men are not interested in family and relationships. They just don't. That's not a drive or goal for them. They say that they, I already mentioned that. They say that they drink a lot. It's very part of their culture.
Yeah, it's a very domestic violence, abusive community for women, and that's one of the things I kept seeing was that when they
me
did
too.
talk to a lot of the women, they were like, "We want a better life," and for them, and we still live in a world where the illusion of the Western world being so much better is very sellable to a lot of places on the
Yeah,
planet.
there were a lot of interviews with the girls that were attending these meets or whatever that were saying that they were describing how they saw Western and American men, and it's like, really? Are you sure about that?
That's what they saw on TV.
Yeah, that's what they saw on TV. That's it.
But I'd say on average, it's probably not an illusion. In some parts of the world, a woman walking down the street showing too much skin, like a sleeveless shirt, could be raped or whatever as a response to that. Or domestic violence isn't as common here as you were alluding to.
Yeah, well, and I think the other thing too is like what I felt from a little bit of information I picked up from watching the documentary about Ukraine in general was, here in America we have lots of domestic violence laws. We have more equal rights laws, and a lot of these countries still really don't have those. So even though you have an area like the Ukraine where there's a lot of women in power doing things, they still don't necessarily have laws to protect them.
Wow.
So that's another thing too, is to be somewhere, and you hear that a lot about people in the Middle East and women in the Middle East. They want to go somewhere where they're safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was funny too to hear as they were interviewing some of the ones that were like a lot of these girls. I mean, from the ones I saw, maybe 70% of them were highly educated: engineers, nurses, lawyers.
Yeah, I noticed that a lot in the
Some of them had
documentaries.
multiple degrees. I mean, we're talking like 25-year-old, extremely like supermodel, beautiful girls, and they're like, "Yeah, this is what I now." Where I get a little suspicious, that's probably not the right word I'm looking for, is
I think it's the right word.
How hard is it for you guys to get degrees? Or because a lot of in history we've seen a lot of countries try and build themselves up, so they make it extremely easy for people to get degrees in highly advanced educational curriculums because they want to start exporting their people out. And just because you say you have a degree doesn't mean that it's up to par. It's the same argument we have here in America. It's you went to if you're in California, you went to a CSU versus a UC, or you went to a high-end private versus a public school.
You went to Stanford versus the what is it? The Phoenix.
Here we go to Sac
Community
State,
something,
or whatever, Bakersfield State, or I don't know, pick a smaller college area. And like, so you had a better education because yours was more high priced.
I wouldn't say that. I'd say it's more so the accreditation of the university. For example, my wife had two roommates in college. One was practiced medicine in Germany, and the other one was from Italy. And in the U.S., we recognize the German MD and not the Italian MD.
See, that's what I'm talking about.
And it's an accreditation criteria where they're expected to understand or be educated in certain aspects of, in this case, medicine that was fulfilled in German universities, but not in the Italian universities.
And that's what I'm wondering is, are all these degrees that these girls were able to get in Russia and the Ukraine, are they not accredited and recognized by the U.S.? Because one of the first things I think is, I understand money would definitely be an issue, but why can't they migrate over here with that education and work over here on a work visa? Or maybe even a student visa, because I know they're doing that in every other country.
Well, I think with the other countries, they're sent to the U.S. and they receive a U.S. education and stay, right? Whereas if, for example, they were educated in the Ukraine, they would probably have a really good life in the Ukraine, and maybe that wouldn't be recognized in maybe Germany, but it would be maybe in Croatia, where maybe it's a little safer for them, and they could do that, but they're not making it here. Whereas the wealthier class will come to the U.S. and get a U.S. education, and they can take that wherever. But I think like the U.S. and Australia and the U.K. don't recognize as many outside countries on the accreditation criteria.
I guess I never thought of it that way. So those that come over here to get on a student visa or whatever, the key point there is that they're getting a U.S. education because they're going to school here.
Right.
And that's what legitimizes their education and credentials that they get from that. And
right.
That's the ticket, is getting the education here, not what you got in your country and bringing over here.
Right. Whereas here in Sacramento, the feud between UC Davis and Sac State, they're both accredited by the same accreditation for engineering. It's the ABET accreditation, so it doesn't matter. You get more of a theoretical education at Davis,
The UC.
that's more expensive, or you could go to Sac State and then they'll talk shit about you, but you guys both got the same job, essentially.
And we literally do work right next to each other. It gains you nothing in the end. But yeah. All right, so I'm sorry we went a little off topic on that, though. Let's get into how this kind of all works. I already mentioned that all this is done pretty much completely or solely off of websites. So you go create an account, just like a dating website or something, and I went and took a look at one of them. I'm not saying the name because we're not trying to advertise for whatever, but you guys can
So
find it.
what'd you sign up for?
Nothing.
What's your flavor, Ben?
Sure.
As a matter of fact, you actually can't do much on the websites without creating an account too. So it's
And giving them a credit card number.
yeah, it's just like dating websites or even porn websites where you're sitting there, like the non-free ones anyway. They'll show you the pictures and you're like, wow, look at all these beautiful women. And they like click on one. Oh, you want to see her profile? Well, we're gonna fade it out in the back. We're gonna put this pop-up over it. And it's gonna say, join now. Enter your information here.
$59.95 a month.
That's it, man. And that gets you started. So I believe that there's usually a free, browsing after you create your account. But then if you really want to do anything else, you have to start paying. So yes, right off the bat, you're paying either a monthly or a per interaction fee. Like let's say you find a girl on there that you like and you want to send her a message. Well, okay, I'm sorry, that's another level of the website. You must pay for that feature. Very granularly broken down with charges and what services you get, as I understand it. Again, I didn't sign up for this stuff to see exactly what they wanted to try and charge you for, but from what I was reading, a lot of Reddit posts on people who have tried it or gone through it or knew somebody very closely that did it and how the things that they had to go through in order to proceed down that avenue, I guess you could say. So since we mentioned charges, some of the services that you will have to pay for are, obviously the first one most would think is translation. A lot of the girls, educated as they may be, they don't teach them English. Some of them know a little bit. A lot of them, from what we saw, don't know any. So you want to talk to any of them, you have to pay for a translator, both through the website, which is kind of ridiculous these days. And maybe they removed that feature because that particular documentary I saw that mentioned that was a few years older. But nowadays, I don't see why you couldn't just go to Google Translate, write your little love letter, and then translate it to Russian or whatever language you need to translate it to, then copy and paste it into the form on the website and send it that way. So maybe they don't charge for the email or messaging translation anymore. But there was one documentary that said that, yes, some of them were trying to charge by word, and some of them were trying to charge by message. And they're like, dude, wow. Okay, so they're really going to hold you to the fire there, and you're going to wait here and go through us, and we're going to monitor every single thing you do, and wow. So yeah, there's that fee. When you are there, there is a whole slew of things, and we'll get into a little bit what there means. When you get to the country, there's a few other things they'll charge you for. Parties and socials have fees associated with them. And any personal introductions to, let's say you're on the website and you've been chatting a couple of messages with a particular girl, or there's one that you really like. When you get there, you can pay to have a specific introduction with that particular girl. So basically, they'll have her at one of the socials, and they'll introduce you, and then you can pay for a translator to hang out with you the whole time that you're hanging out with this girl, trying to talk to her and get to know her. If you want a
chime in, Glenn. I know you're trying.
Oh man,
he's just smirking.
I'm trying
over
to put something together to throw in on this, and wow,
right. Well, what's crazy is one of the documentaries I probably watched the most of was they had these two guys from Australia, and they went to Odessa, and it was part of this agency. And so they had socials, and they had all these events, and they had translator stuff. And the whole time I'm thinking, how many different things are they charging these guys for?
All of it.
Every single thing. The translator, the party, they probably had to pay fees for all these things. And it seemed and that was actually one that seemed like it was almost sort of legitimate, because it was an agency in the Ukraine that was bringing people there, and they would get these girls together, and they'd have events and parties, and it was like speed dating and all this other stuff.
Yeah,
and that
I saw that same one.
Yeah, so that one seemed a little easier, but some of the other ones were these guys are just randomly writing to a photo. And they're like, of course this isn't the girl. We've all been trapped into this whole internet thing before. You go to some dating thing and you're talking to somebody and you're like, oh, that's a picture of my cousin. That's a picture of me 17 years ago. Some other crap like that. So it's just this giant illusion. And obviously these agencies are preying on lonely guys with money, desperate people with money. So when you're desperate or lonely, you'll do a lot of things that you normally wouldn't do. And I think that's one of the things that this industry is doing, is it's a vulture, and it's just coming down and just taking people at their most vulnerable times.
Vulnerable, and also feeding to or catering to people who are extreme womanizers and
absolutely
I don't have the vocabulary for what these guys are, but some of these guys are just people who are looking for a sex slave or in a,
Yeah,
in a
a
fucking
maid, a
maid,
mom, a slave,
that looks like a
all in
model.
one. Yeah.
And like so, some of them guys, it's not all of them, but some of them were like that for sure in the documentaries, and it was ridiculous.
Yeah, and then you see these guys that are like, they're 50 years old, they're 200 pounds overweight, and they're trying to like date a 22-year-old supermodel.
Yeah.
Like, okay, first, dude, let's put some reality in your world here. Let's just stop. First of all, unless you lose 300 pounds and get buff and drop back 25 years in age, you don't have a chance in hell. I mean, the guys in her league are fighting over her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's just like the fact that a lot of these guys think that they can just throw money at this and I can just take whatever I want. It's a possession.
Yeah.
That mentality is going to be wearing out real soon.
Yep.
And a lot of places in the world, that mentality is going that way. I think the Ukraine thing is a little bit different because you have a society of women who are like, they want to procreate. They want to have families. They want to do things, and that option isn't there for them.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say they're desperate.
I wouldn't say they're desperate
They're
at all
just-
because they have boatloads of dudes showing up every day trying to throw some dick at
They
them.
want, but they want more options, and that's why they come to this. And plus, they don't have a lot of money. Even if they're living
Right.
comfortably, it's not comfortably like we live comfortably.
Yeah.
So it was much more enticing. So it can be very enticing to join one of these
Yeah,
things.
and I think it's still, when you look at the aspect of the Western world, we still sell the Western world idea of this visions of grandeur where, everybody's living the Flashdance movie, and it's just all this romance and money and beach houses and all that stuff. And I mean, that's what we're selling the world,
Yep.
And people are still buying that. And as long as people are still buying that, desperate people are going to want a piece of that. And if you don't know anything about some other place, you can easily think that that's what the whole place is like.
yeah, we're all surfers here in California, right? So
Right,
like-
yeah,
just
we're
like
all
our-
blonde.
Yeah, just like our
Right.
California episode. That's all we
Right.
talked about was a bunch of other things. But yeah, it's like these misconceptions that people get of California.
And one thing that I didn't think of when I was watching the documentaries, but maybe you looked this up. What are they charging the women for these services?
Okay,
Because they could be double dipping here.
Yeah, let me. I did have that in there. I guess we
Ooh,
can
that
talk
classic double dip.
about that. Yeah. So for the socials, there's a few incentives for the girls. See, I wanted to hold that more when we started talking more about the scams and stuff
right.
like that. But I'll throw
Well,
this
no, let's
out
go
there.
to it later. Yeah.
Well, because I'll forget now because I didn't put this particular thing in.
All right.
One of the things, for example, is they will get so these socials that they put together that yes they charge you to attend as the male or whatever. They get typically an average of 1 to 10 ratio. So for every guy that shows up, there's 10 girls. So you go into a room with I don't know with like a nightclub, a bar that they take over or whatever, rent for the night. And there's maybe 12 to a dozen or two guys from the organization that are all that have all come from all over the world to meet these girls. And you go into a room of 150, 200 girls, and those are the ratios. So you pay for that chance, those very good odds, and a lot of them are very comfortable, so they'll come up and talk to you. So for whatever. So anyway, the girls, I did hear a couple of things. One of them things is that they will offer raffles. With cash prizes and or other prizes to the girls if they stay the entire night. Some of them they do pay them. It depends, not much, but it's like, well, you're coming here to hang out, look for a guy who might have a lot of money, so we're not going to pay you a whole lot, but they do pay. Some of them they do pay. And then the other huge incentive is either they are truly looking for someone to marry, have family with, or they're trying to get out of the country. Those are both huge incentives. But the other thing is a lot of them will go for, what do they call them? Shopping dates is what they want. So they'll convince the guy after flirting with them and this, that, and the other, let's go to the mall. And let me pick out.
Go to Gucci.
Yeah, wherever. I don't think they have Gucci's over there, but they have. Well, maybe they do. I don't know.
That's got to be an equivalent.
Yeah, something really expensive to buy them, and then so they convince them to take them shopping for the day on a date that they set up, which they pay for to set up, and then pay for the translator to go with them to buy her a bunch of crap that, whatever she wants, or basically. Yeah. And then you maybe never hear from her again, or maybe you see her, maybe she keeps hanging out with you until you're gone, So there is there is incentives for them, because otherwise, why would they be there at all? Just the difficult part is, and we'll get into more of this again a little bit in here. Mm-hmm. How do you read what said girl's, intentions are?
Right.
Learn the language.
Learning the language.
Yeah, it's a start.
Well, it's a start, and here's the other thing too, but and you'll relate to this for sure, because when we go to other cultures, we've talked about this with Asian cultures that you've been into and you expressed interest in me, and I'm like, wow, I don't know anything about that shit. Anyway, but how people mannerisms and facial expressions and body language, it doesn't mean shit when you get out of our country. That's stuff for our country. Hell, it doesn't even mean the same thing when you go to some other states. people talk different, right? So just because let's say you learn Russian, it doesn't mean that you know all of the culture behind how they move, to know if somebody's lying, to know if somebody's, a guilty look or something. I mean, you might not pick that stuff up. And that was one of the things that I heard several of the guys say is, I just need to spend time with her and I'll know if she's lying or not. I was like, bullshit, dude. You're not going to know at all, dude. I mean, you don't even know how to read those people. You don't speak the language. How do you think you're going to read it?
First of all, you're dumb enough to spend all this money to go to the other side of the world to try to get laid.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm gonna question your IQ right now.
And to think that you could be a 65-year-old man picking up a 21-year-old that looks like a fucking supermodel. I mean, blonde hair, blue-eyed supermodel. It's like ridiculous. But anyway, so I forget where we were going with that.
So what are the costs associated with this?
I can give you a little bit, but hold on. Let me before we do that, I don't have all the costs because, again, you don't get those breakdowns unless you actually get into it and go. So it's not like they list it on the website with all the pricing. You have to create. If they did,
we're going to send Ben undercover.
Some of these documentaries have already done it, but they didn't really talk too much about cost. And then the other tricky thing is cost is only relevant for the time period that the documentary was made, right?
That's true.
Most of these documentaries were like from 2010 to like 2015, 2016. So while 2016 is not that much, not that old or whatever, but I mean, they could have risen their prices by quadruple, but since then, I mean, inflation, price of oil goes up.
Everybody's been watching these videos, and now there's more people showing up.
That's it, dude. So maybe for all, it looked like most of the groups were a dozen to 2 dozen guys, though. It's what it looked like from all of them. And I did notice the same hotel where they take them to in Odessa, the same, even if it was a different company, it was all kind of the same. It was probably all the same company, and they just work under different names, different websites, and all. It seems so like multiple documentaries focused around the same place where they would meet and then converge and then fan out from there to other events and stuff like that while they're there. So. What was it? Okay, so one of the other things the last things I wanted to mention about them charging for was they print out these books and/or send you personalized website, help you. How do I say this? A wish list. You pay for that feature to have a wish list on the website of all these different girls that you would like to meet, and they pay for these. They print out these books that they have the snapshots of the profiles of a lot of the girls, and then all of the girls have like an item number, like a number that they have, so that you can find
part number.
A part number, yes. So when you're at these socials,
do they have a barcode tattooed on somewhere also?
Nice. So when you're at these socials, the girls are wearing these name tags with their name on it, but also their item number. So that you can find them later if you want to set up a date with them. Then when you go back to I wish I had the proper terms for these. When you go back to the coordinator that your group is working with through the agency, you can say, number 7705982, like I really liked her. Can you set up a date for me with her? And that you pay for that.
That'll be $1,500.
Yeah, they'll call her up and say, hey, this guy, if you remember him, would like a date with you.
If you remember him.
Well, those girls talk to like 10, all the guys that they can the time that they're there. Yeah, granted, there's 1 to 10 ratio guy to girl. But nevertheless, those girls are all vying for an opportunity to talk to each of the few guys that are there, because otherwise they're either hoping for the raffle at the end or they're hoping for the little paycheck that they get, and then they just want to dance and basically hang out at a nightclub for the night.
Yeah. Or to get out of the country.
Or they get out of the country. Whatever their motivation is, if they don't meet somebody and make that connection, they don't.
And I'm sure there's girls in places like that who have figured out how to make a lot of extra money doing this.
Dude, there's totally.
Totally.
Yeah,
it's got to be. It's just like prostitution in Nevada.
Yeah, and some of them do end up sleeping with them. Some of them don't. I mean, it depends on who knows what kind of deal you work out behind doors, right? And then some of the guys that go over there would probably just offer that. Like, look, I'm not really looking to get married. If I give you $500 American, can we fuck, and then all week, and then go off and do whatever you're going to do. So, I mean, I'm sure deals like that get worked out. The agency, not that I saw, none of the agencies look like they would stop anything like that. And I don't know, but I don't think
if it's making money, they probably just roll with it.
Yeah, and I don't think prostitution is illegal there, so I don't even know.
No idea.
I don't know either. So I don't know what kind of things they can legally get away with. But again, behind closed doors, I mean, what the hell?
So they could be like hired models. They do that here in the
absolutely.
U.S. Some guy will hire
escorts,
models,
right?
Or just models. Hang out with me in the nightclub, make me look cool.
Yeah,
and
that's what escorts are supposed to be. If you do high price escort services,
okay.
Yeah, escort's not supposed to be. It is an escort for the night. It's not supposed to be a prostitution ring, but they get turned into it.
Need a date for the evening.
Yeah,
so what you fundraiser.
Yeah, so you're
Bruce
a rich
Wayne.
guy. You get the model for the night, and you're like, damn, like you're really gorgeous. Can I sleep with you for like an extra $10,000 or whatever it costs for some of those girls? There's a couple of really cool documentaries on that of I don't like the term, but high price hookers, and like those girls are like rich, and the places that they live in and the stuff that they have is no freaking joke. But they look like supermodels, and they hang out with extremely wealthy men who can afford their fees. But yeah, that's a whole type of prostitution that's. I want to call it a classy prostitution.
It's just high society.
It's high society. It's a high class ass. Yeah. I don't know. Anyway,
There's $50 booty and there's $50,000 booty.
Exactly. So let's get into logistics.
What corner do you live on?
Yeah. Oh, one of the marketing claims that I heard, and this I didn't see. They were very careful. The agencies were very careful to make any promises to you because they sell you finding love. Okay, how can we put a price or how can we force love? So you can't. They can't. There's only so much marketing they can do.
Yeah, they're playing on our culture for that. I don't think they marry for love over there.
Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Who knows? I mean, some I would imagine do. I mean, I can see where you're coming from with that, but I also refuse to believe that there aren't a fair number of women anywhere that want the same things, like security and love and companionship and all that other stuff. Even if they do want money and they do want to take advantage of somebody, maybe at the same time they want both.
I wasn't trying to say that it's strictly a financial transaction for them, but as I understand it, they're more of a hardened culture over there due to the last couple hundred years of
because it's a hard knock life over there. I bet. Yeah. I mean, so they grew up hardened.
So they marry for security or not necessarily social status, but to kind of keep life going.
Yeah.
Whereas over here, it's like you marry someone because you like hanging out with them.
Yeah.
I'm not going to marry anybody just because I like hanging out with them. Let's put that. Let's just.
Haven't we already done an episode on marriage? Yeah, we did. A contract.
I like hanging out with you, lady, but we're not getting married.
Okay, so one of the only claims I saw them or heard them make was that 50% end up with a fiance by the end of their 10-day visit, and we'll get into the 10-day visit thing in a minute. Now, that is like a statistic. I mean, it is a statistic, but like all statistics, you have to be really careful with how it's construed. 50% end up with a fiance by the end of their trip. What does having a fiance mean?
You bought her a ring.
Yeah, nothing. I mean, it could be, okay, you bought her a ring. What does that mean? Is she really going to come back with you? How do you know? You don't know what's going to happen. How many people is she fiancéed to?
Yeah. That's what I was going to get at. Yeah.
I mean, how much did you spend on this ring? Are you going to get it back if she decides to change her mind? Have you already started the visa process? What does that mean? So they can safely make a claim like that because some of these guys really will propose to one of these girls that they fall for, or fancy by the end of their trip. I believe that, and I believe that they propose, and I believe that the girls probably say yes, and maybe they get her a ring of some sort, or they say...
Well, they know this dude's got to get on a plane in 2 days, and he's out of here. The chance of him coming back is pretty slim.
That's the other thing, is they all know you are gone in the time period of your trip.
Right.
Or they've got the hook in you, so now you're going to pay for many more translated email correspondence. You're going to
send them money.
So more than that, a lot of these socials, the guys will exchange phone numbers with the girls and deal with them directly.
Maybe the phone number that they're given is
true.
Right back into the pot.
It's absolutely true. And there were many cases where the guys will begin to help her out. Like you need.
That's what I'm saying.
You need help with school, or you need help with living
So
expenses. They'll start sending money.
So back to my. So if you're one of these girls and you're smart and they're educated, so they've got to be figuring this out at one point. They're not dumb. I mean, sure, everybody has this biological clock where they may want to have a family or settle down or do things, and I'm sure that a vast majority of people fall into that range. But I think a lot of these people are just like, they figured out how to run this as a system. These guys come in every 10 days. There's another group of guys. Yep. If I can get 2 or 3 of these guys every week or month or something to give me $100 a month, by the end of in the next 2 years, I'm high class society around here.
It's like trapping tourists, but with better odds.
Yeah. And and I've had girls friends that were strippers that have done this exact same thing to guys right here in the United States all the time.
Oh hell yeah!
They get some guy on the hook, and the guy's in love with them. And, I need some help with my rent. I can't make my car payment. Next thing you know, this dude's shelling out $1,500 a month to this girl
for a lap dance.
Yeah. For the hope or desire they think that they're going to hook up with them, or they think they're going to be with them, or whatever. And a smart girl who's good looking can BS a guy faster than anybody else on the planet.
Dominate, dude. Yeah,
it's absolutely
really
true.
Scary, dude.
Yeah.
The power of tits.
It's all of it. It's not just the boobs.
Oh, right.
But yes.
It's that triangle.
Right.
It's all of it, man.
It's the Bermuda Triangle.
So, you get lost in it. Clever, Tom. I haven't heard that one. That's funny.
I like it.
That's very appropriate. Okay, so getting into
fly in, get disoriented. Can't get communication with anybody.
Getting more into the logistics of this stuff. So these trips from pretty much all of the companies I read about or saw videos on were always a 10-day trip. I don't know why it was a 10-day trip, but they were all structured around a 10-day trip.
Because they're in the metric system.
Yeah. I guess. So, I mean, that probably maybe that includes flight times and it takes what I don't know. And so it ended up being a week. Add 3 days for
Well, travel time, yeah.
travel time and getting settled or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, all of them said they were a 10-day trip. So to go back to what you were saying, all these girls who meet these guys know that they're there for a 10-day trip. And they know exactly when you're leaving and what you're doing. I guess you could probably break off on your own and stay if you wanted to, but you're not going to be with the agency while it's doing that.
Unless you're paying them extra money.
Yeah, maybe. I guess if you got big money, you can stay out there with the agency or whatnot, but then you're on your own, and then you're not going to organize events. You're only trying to meet up the girls that you met in person, and hopefully you got their real number and whatever, right?
Yeah.
You don't have a translator or security watching out for you.
You know, one of the things, too, about the translators, I didn't write this down later, so I probably you brought that up. I wanted to hit that. Whoa. Wow. I meant hit on that.
Better book your 10-day trip now, Glenn.
I meant hit on that. So one of the things was, and the reason I thought hitting on is because I saw more than once in these different documentaries that there would be guys who would say, "All right, forget these other girls. I can't talk to them. It's real too hard to even pick up on them." And they would end up spending the entire evening hitting on the translators. Because the translators are also pretty girls too, but can speak English well. So like I saw that happen more than a couple of times where several guys would just focus on the translators, and one of them, and they will date the guys too. So they're not worried about getting in trouble or getting whatever.
Yeah.
They don't care too. They'll go for it also.
They're all in the business.
Yeah, but they're probably a greater commodity to the agency than the regular girls or models or whatever, because they're translators.
Yeah, and we really don't know what the back end agreement is with those agencies. Are they held by contract? Are they, like you bail on us, we'll kill you? I mean, or is it just
you never know.
You can do whatever you want. I mean, we'll pay you by day, and then we don't want to see you again, or whatever. Who knows how it's handled?
Yeah. I mean, it's just like any other industry. There's probably a lot of really scary stuff that's tied to a lot of the stuff that
we won't see in the forefront. Yep. Actually, absolutely.
Which is, to me, I think the scariest part of it all. And back with the conversation we had before about a lot of these guys are like the ones that say they don't do this, they're just emailing back and forth on a website to a photograph.
Yeah.
These guys have got visions of grandeur. They think that this hot model likes me. Well, first of all, buddy, would that girl that looks like that like you in your town?
Yeah.
Or so let's this weird different reality of I'm online, so this girl wants to be here and it's going to be a mail order thing. Just the reality if you slowly talk through something sometimes out loud, it shows you how stupid and ridiculous it is.
Say it out loud.
And watching some of these guys on some of these documentaries, I was just like, really, do you think that girl would ever want anything to do with you? I mean, she has the pick of anybody, and it's just this, I don't know. And so, like I said, I feel like there's this huge preying on people because it's an emotional thing. And when you prey on people in certain directions, you can take as much money from them as you want.
Absolutely.
These guys are desperate. They're lonely. They've got
They have
jobs.
hope because
They've got a little bit of hope.
Pictures on this website.
Yeah, but it's just like you said before about the dating, just like regular dating websites.
This is exactly what the dating apps do.
Yeah, it's just like an international version of it.
Yeah, if you haven't listened to our online dating episode, I can't remember what the two were, but look it up, and it's the same. It's the same games, man. It's all skewed against the guys, and but it's great for girls. I mean, you have to deal with a bunch of weirdos, but sometimes you sift through those simple emails and ignore those messages. You have your pick of the litter most of the time.
But to me, it was kind of, I don't know, humorous watching these guys spend thousands and thousands of dollars, and they do an interview with them at their apartment when they're sitting there. They're 40 years old and they're playing video games, staring at their apartment. And I'm like, dude, you don't have a life to begin with. You don't have anything to offer another person. You're already...
A lot of these guys are really sad situations.
Yeah, they're pretty...
You see them, you're like, wow.
Yeah, you're like, dude, come on. I'm not trying to make fun of somebody because they're in a bad situation, but I mean, if you want something like that to happen in your life, you need to start with yourself and make your own world better, make yourself better, be a better person, and there's a lot of things. You can't just be fat and lazy and take a pill and lose weight. Yeah. I mean, you can't be fat and lazy and go online and get a supermodel girlfriend.
Yeah, but I think you hit exactly on it. They're preying on their emotions because they know when they do that, you will react irrationally. If these guys did sit back and think about this rationally, like, hey, why would she really be interested in me? What do I have to offer?
Okay, so
her?
let's put it this way: if you prey off the hope to get them there, showing
Yep.
them the pictures or whatever. That's why I wanted to get into what happens when you get there, because this is going to answer or explain more of why people fall into this. The first thing that you get when you get there, one of the first events that they set up for you. I don't know if this is every time, but I saw this on multiple documentaries that focused on this. Maybe it was just this company, I don't know, or some of the bigger companies. One of the first things they do is set you up on a beauty pageant show. So it's not unlike going to a strip club or something. Then they line up all the girls on the dance floor or whatever and then you're like, they literally ask you, so everybody rate your girls or whatever, so you got this whole display about you right in front of you, and then these guys are sitting there writing down the numbers like, oh my gosh, she's beautiful, yeah, that one, I want to meet that one, I want to meet that one. Then all these girls are available in the next social. So you watch the pageant event as they display, and they're in bikinis, they're in dresses, they switch them out in clothes, run them through, and they run it like a beauty pageant. Yeah. And they've got hundreds of girls to show you. I mean, so there's tons to show you. It's not like it's a small thing. The videos, if you didn't see that in one of the videos, it's a huge thing that they put on, huge show and production they put on. So wow, you really feel like, holy crap, this is crazy, right? Then out of these girls that these dream girls you're looking at, you're writing names, numbers down, whatever. Then they take you to the first social. And then you take those lonely guys who've never really talked to girls, and some of them never had a girlfriend, never been married, whatever, and you stick them in a room where you have beautiful girls that will come up and talk to you, even if they can't speak to you in their language, just to be approached.
Just giving you attention.
Yeah. I never had a gorgeous girl come up and talk to me. I mean, I can understand, not that I've had girlfriends, so I'm not as bad as these guys are, right? But nevertheless, that shit is powerful as hell, dude. And it's like being famous for a day. It's like if you go rent a Ferrari and drive around in Malibu or something, or drive around anywhere.
And the attention you get.
Attention. People are going to look at you like you're famous. They're like, wow, that's an amazing car with your bright orange douchebag, Lamborghini. Cool.
Right.
So people are going to look at you like. So you go and put in somebody who's never been in a situation like that, and how many guys really have ever been in a situation like that?
And you just boost the crap out of their ego.
Dude,
and
you're like,
everything else.
I'm like a god here. Like, this is amazing. Like a beautiful, not just one beautiful
I never
girl.
know there was a place where a 5'6", 285-pound guy with hair all over him could fit in so well.
And no personality.
Right?
like
I'm getting laid like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah, it's like you died and gone to heaven, right? I mean, it's so that when you play off of that, how are you going to beat that?
That's true.
Those guys have never even been put in that situation before. Most guys have never even, but 99% of guys never been put in a situation like that before, no matter where they're from. It's like,
I'm the 1%.
Oh, what? Did you buy a ticket and not tell us?
No. I just drive my dad's cars all the time.
Oh, damn. Well, there you go. Well, I was talking about the going into a room with 150 beauty pageant women. And then having
Well, that's the thing. These, and they're preying on. Like I said before, they're preying on these guys that have low self-esteem. They're lonely. They're depressed. They're sad. They're desperate as possible can be. And so now there's this.
Or they're worse. They're looking for somebody to take advantage of.
Yeah,
because there's that. There is.
Well,
both
there's
sides.
that too. And that's the thing. As one of the things I noticed when sort of watching through some of the documentaries, and this is my weird evil brain. I was looking at this and I was like, man, at some point, some of these girls are going to start going, you know what? This American guy mentality that I can just take anything I want because I have money, no matter how ugly and stupid and repulsive I am, that shit's going to start backfiring in the world. And this mentality that you're an American and you can do whatever you want, it's already backfiring in the world. And I feel like this is one of those small categories where that's going on. Because it seemed like most of these guys were these arrogant white dudes that had a little bit of money that thought they could just do anything they want. Oh, I can't get away with, having sex with a 17-year-old girl in America, so I'm going to go do it in Thailand.
Yeah.
It's the same type of people.
Yep, absolutely. We'll get into more on the expectations too, because I have I have breakdowns for them. What I saw a lot of on the on the male and female side of that. But anyway, continuing on here, let's see. So from these socials, after you've seen these girls line up like a meat, display or whatever.
Yeah, like a product display.
I think, I was trying to think of something with meat and product. Anyway, because they line them up like, it looks just like a beauty pageant show. If you've ever seen a beauty pageant show, you know exactly
But with
what we're
meat,
talking
apparently.
about, but with boobs.
Like bologna.
It's
It's a meat
I like
product.
summer sausage.
Nice.
You look like you like the sausage.
Hey. Good one.
Shots fired.
Damn. Nice.
War has
Easy
begun.
chorizo.
That's right. Spicy sausage over here. That's a different show. Moving on.
So they let's see. So after that, right? Then they have their first social, which is usually the nightclub, dancing, or bar, whatever. And then they can start collecting or a chance to talk to some of these girls that they thought were really pretty and writing down numbers. Then at the next day, they wake up and they start working with the agency to line up dates with those numbers of those girls. They got the item number or product number, whatever the hell you want to call it.
They scan it.
Profile number so then the rest of the trip ensues continues with more social gatherings like that. So they do that multiple times. Maybe not as big as the first one because the rest of them looked kind of smaller from what I was seeing. And then going on dates with the women that they're able to line up and who agree to see them, privately on a date or whatever. And usually it's the same. It's like dinner or anything else we would do for dates here.
But they pay for that translator.
They pay for the translator and they pay for the whole date. So they pay for everything. But that's not, minus the translator, that's not, most of the time guys do that here anyway. So,
right.
It costs money.
If I could get a translator to make this happen better, I'd do it here.
Yeah, a love translator. Can you tell me?
What the hell is this bitch talking about?
You help me get with this chick. Come along with us.
That'd be a great job for a college student to translate what's going on between men and women on dates.
Right?
A whole new industry.
You see how she just moved there? That's because you said something dumb.
Exactly.
See how she's playing with her hair?
Yeah. Don't touch her yet, man. That's just creepy.
Yeah.
So you get a pair, a guy and a girl that escort like follow you around on your date, and so the female escort will make comments about you as far as her behavior, and the dude will make comments.
Right. Damn. You could have an earplug, and then like both of them, you hire them. They're just watching. So you have a man and a woman.
That kind of stuff has been done. Yeah. People wear ear things and know what to anyway, whatever. Yeah. Date coaches.
Sounds like a
date,
James
date
Bond
coaching.
thing.
That's date coaching is what that. Yeah, that is a real thing. I don't know how to find those people, but they're out there.
Man, I can't imagine ever. I don't know.
I shit the bed talking to women plenty of times.
It's a skill that somebody doesn't teach you or you don't learn on your own. From maybe you've got a guy friend that's really really forward with women or really good at talking to girls. Or you have a dad that raised you and taught you, hey, this is, go talk to her, it promoted that to you.
Yeah, pushed it.
Yeah, and I would, so and the reason I have a lot of respect for that situation is because I wasn't raised that way. So talking to women is really fun.
Well, you brought up a good point too, and I think a lot of times, a lot of my guy friends that are horrible with women. Yep. Never had sisters.
Yeah, I didn't
or
have
never
sisters.
had female friends.
I didn't have
never
female-
talked to
yeah.
girls. I grew up with 3 sisters.
Yeah.
I learned a lot of tricks that they pull real early.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's reading a body language. And since we're all speaking the same language, it's easy to tell. So like I told girlfriends from the day I started dating, this crying thing, it won't get me. I had 3 sisters. The crying thing ain't going to get nothing from me.
I think a lot of it, too, is confidence, whether it's false confidence or real confidence.
Right.
It seems like the more confident speakers do better, and if they can handle rejection better, they perform better in, I guess, talking to more women. Yeah. They go up. For me, it was like the rules were constantly changing.
Yeah.
If you were too confident or too
That's what
funny.
it feels like, right?
Yeah, it's like... And also within the same individual, right? If you get them at the wrong time, your joke is not going to land. Yep. But if you were there 3 weeks ago, that would have killed and you would have been dating.
Yep.
But if you can't handle that rejection and let it roll off your back and show confidence there, then you're kind of left out in the.
Then you got to start learning how to do peacocking.
Then you got to start learning how to
and
speak
then
Russian.
That's too much. Yeah.
All right, so let's see. Where did I leave off from here? Oh man,
you were talking about the different dates and stuff like that when you got there.
Oh, that was one of the other things. Okay, so the last part I wanted to talk about the socials is this is also an opportunity for if the guys had been conversing via email, then they can ask for that girl or hope that girl will be there and then look for her in one of these socials. Because apparently they try to match up the group of girls that comes to the ones that are available on the website at a given time, such that they can kind of, if somebody suits your fancy when you're looking on the website, you have a chance at maybe meeting them. If not, then you can try and set up a date with them offline as well, through the coordinators if they didn't come to one of the socials or whatever.
Yeah, the one I saw was pretty sad on that subject there. This guy had been paying for translators to communicate with a specific woman for a while, went out there, met her, or I think he went out there, met her, came back, was communicating with her, so he was paying for a translator, went back, had paid for a special date with her, and she was not interested the whole time,
Yeah.
and clearly didn't know what the hell it was that they had been talking about.
Yeah.
And he was pretty upset because he'd spent I think he said something like $60,000
Yeah.
on
Jeez.
email translations.
Jeez.
There were a couple of
Buy a nice car and drive around.
there were a couple of translators
Right.
that admitted that they are the ones that answered. That in some cases they're the ones that answered all the emails that the
I'm
girls
sure.
never even
Never
talked
saw.
to those
Yeah.
girls. Yeah.
So you're talking to a third party, and
Yeah.
this person that they're catfishing you, like Thomas was saying.
Yeah.
That's it. Yep. So there was something else I wanted to add here. There was a lot of concerns kind of regarding the logistics of this whole thing. There was concern, major concern, and I believe this started from a women's organization. I didn't write down the name of it, so I apologize. But if you check the wiki, you'll look into the Wikipedia, you'll find it too. Basically, they were able to prove in a court case that there was a significantly higher degree or amount, a percentage of women who were brought to America and were in abusive relationships than in the general population. So the way they made it look, and I don't know if it's because there was a lot of backlash for it anyway, because it made guys looking to do this like they're criminals before they even started, right? So there was backlash from that. But the way they made it look is that there was more men looking to bring women over here, from foreign women over here, to abuse them, basically, to whether it be physically or whatever.
To dominate them.
Yeah, exactly, and which led to a higher level of domestic violence cases and situations or whatnot. And these
Just
girls,
abuse in general.
yeah, and these girls don't know how to defend themselves as far as like legally goes, what their options are, what their rights are, whatever, because they don't know this country. They've never even been here to find those little nuances of things that can protect them and get them out of situations like that. So,
Or they come from a place where that's normal behavior,
Yeah.
and they don't
Yeah.
believe there's any recourse that can be taken here.
yep. So in 2005, the International Marriage Broker Regulation Act was enacted.
Marriage
And
broker.
Marriage Broker Regulation Act, and it requires a few things of these companies that match people together. And that's the only reason I wanted to bring this up. So let's see. So prior to the male getting the woman's address, because apparently you need that in order to do the fiancé visa or a lot of the other paperwork to immigrate her in, and even I think to even go over there and meet her too, to some certain degree, depending on what kind of a date you want with her, where you want to pick her up or whatever. Before the entity can give that information to the man from the U.S., the man has a few things he has to do. And this list, I'll go through this list real quick. The man must complete a questionnaire on his criminal and marital background. Now, I think that's actually a background check now, but here it was questionnaire, which they could say whatever they want, right? The website must obtain the man's record from the United States National Sex Offenders Public Registry database. So basically check and see if he's a registered sex offender. The questionnaire and record must be translated into the woman's native language and provided to her, so she knows what she's dealing with. Again, to a certain degree, right? There's only two things that they're pulling up: criminal, marital, and sex offender.
And what's been recorded.
Yeah. And the woman must certify that she agrees to permit communication. So she has to agree that, okay, this guy's cool, and I've looked through this crap, translated in my language, and you can go ahead and give this guy my information, allow this guy to have my information. So we've already alluded to a few of these other things. Let's talk a little bit about expectations on both sides. We've already said some of this or whatever, so we'll just kind of skim through this part, but I kind of wanted to talk a little bit more on the girl side. Anyway, the men's side, Tara's like, from these documentaries, the majority of this is older men looking for much younger women.
Well, they can afford to pay for it.
Yeah.
Younger guys don't have the money.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
they don't have the need, most of
Yeah.
them.
That's not necessarily true.
Well, I give you that, but yeah.
Yeah,
But I think it goes back to my theory, what I was talking about before, about these older white guys are just like, oh, I'm going to go bang some 22-year-old girl.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I've got a bunch of money. I'll just roll with this.
Right.
And that part of it is kind of a shitter to me, because it just seems like a pretty pissy way to be a human.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I see it a lot of times. And when I was in LA, I'd meet a lot of random crazy people, and met a lot of wealthy people. And once in a while I was in conversation with people who were like, did a lot of international traveling. And you start talking to some of these people, and they're like, yeah, they go to certain countries for certain reasons.
Yeah.
And a lot of Americans do that. A
'Cause
lot of
things are
American men
illegal,
do that. 'Cause,
yeah. Certain things are legal in certain countries that you can't do here, and that's what
Yeah.
they go there for, yeah. Yeah, so definitely a majority of them are older men looking for younger women. And it was really funny to hear some of the reasons why they would pull them out of these socials and ask them, so why are you here? What are you looking for? And what do you hope to find here? And why
girls
these
or the guys?
The guys.
Okay.
And you would get a lot of, I thought it was funny because I heard this quite a few times. A lot of, a lot of them claim that American women don't have certain values anymore. They're not pleased with how American women are. And what was funny is that these values that they listed were like, she doesn't want to cook for me. She doesn't want to clean the house anymore. They don't want to stay at home and just be stay-at-home wives or stay-at-home moms anymore. It was hilarious. Everything that they complained about seemed to be in, it's basically sexist and in their favor, right, in the male favor. And so I thought that was hilarious that multiple guys said that. And then they would have some way of sugarcoating it such that it was like justified in their own mind that this is
Just
okay.
like racism.
Yeah, I really want a happy home, and a secure
I want a
family
loving
life.
wife
Yes.
who cleans the floor when I spill something.
That's it. And I just wanted to look
And
like
a bikini.
that. Yes. So I mean, that was like literally what they were describing, and it was hilarious. So like what Thomas was saying, that was what I wanted to comment when you had said earlier that like if you took a step back, dude, and like recorded what you're saying and listened to it, you would probably understand how ridiculous. Now maybe that doesn't change how much you want that.
Yeah, right.
I guess, but
Or if they heard somebody else say it out loud, you'd be like, that's fucking crazy. But
you're a dick.
that is why I went to Odessa.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I did spend $38,000 going over there.
Yeah. So I thought those.
Maybe I should reevaluate something.
I thought those expectations were kind of ridiculous, and especially I was especially surprised by how many guys would say that same thing, and some were a little more sugarcoating about it, trying to disillusion themselves, and some were just straight up, nope, I want somebody that I can own.
But you're probably dealing with the same type of person, like we were talking about.
Two types, right? The weak and the broken down, and then the dominating and whatever,
Yeah, but I mean, if you're I don't know, 60 years old, you grew up in a little different world where most women stayed at home,
That's true,
raised
too.
families, things like that. So the evolving culture that we have. If women want to be independent, that's great. Pay half the rent.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So that's my first thing. But so I'm all about that. I grew up with an independent mom. She worked her ass off, and I'm like, any woman who wants to do whatever they want to do in the world, I totally support it. I'm absolutely there.
I just don't financially support it.
But yeah, whatever. I don't give a shit who you are, what you want to do. If you want to do something, go for it. And I don't think there should be any restrictions to you attaining any goal that you have in life. But you also, in this situation, you have to remember you have a lot of people who are still in a different social setting where they did grow up with a mom that never had a job. They always took care of things. They cooked things. They took care of the house or whatever. And so there's a lot of people who still have that mentality. And I think there's a lot of people around the world who still kind of want to live in that world where maybe one person's the breadwinner and the other person takes care of the house and the kids or whatever. That is a substantially stable family unit. When you have a parent that can be around all the time to take care of the house, the kids, the needs, and the other one goes out and makes some money. It doesn't matter if it's the man or the woman, but when both parents work, and we've seen this in all type of aspects, when both parents work, there's nobody really there to take care of the kids and a lot of the other stuff, and things kind of don't. I grew up in a household where both my parents worked constantly. I had a key to the house when I was 6.
Damn.
Yeah. But I had to because they were at work. And when I was hungry and I came home, I had to rifle through and hope my brother was around to help me make some food. That wasn't a very healthy way for a kid. But when you're struggling to make ends meet and everybody is, low end, blue collar working, that's what you have. But if you go back into a time, and I think a lot of people are still in this world where they like, hey, if I can make a decent living, you stay home and take care of things, and let's have a stable house. We get home at 6 o'clock at night, and there's dinner on the table, and everybody, eats dinner at the table. There's nothing wrong with a family unit.
No, and there's nothing wrong with that style if that's what both parties like. I mean,
Absolutely.
Some women do like to live like that, and some men like to be the house husband.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever. If that works for you, great. But it's the domination. It's
Exactly.
the you will do this.
Exactly.
You will bend over for me.
Yeah.
Literally and figuratively.
But that's the mentality that they're pushing out is they're
Yeah.
like they want that because they can't get that anymore because
right.
our culture, our American society, that's real hard to achieve anymore. And if you're one of those people who wants to dominate somebody and have some wife that sits home and does everything you tell her to do, and I don't know what they do when you're gone.
Yeah.
Screw the
I
pool
don't
boy.
know. Yeah. Damn.
Because you're treating them like crap anyway.
Yep.
Right.
So then the girls' side had some interesting things that I saw rather from the documentaries, and I saw a lot of them say. Now again, they're speaking into a camera as under the representation of this organization, so we really don't know how much is true. Mm-hmm. And there was one in particular that I'll comment on. One documentary in particular, they interviewed some cab drivers that were randomly outside this one of these social events, right? And those guys were awesome. I don't remember where that was, one of the Russian countries or whatever, or areas. But anyway, those guys were great because they were sitting there saying, yo, dude, we see these girls scam these guys all the time. And some of them are professional brides. That was their term, professional brides.
Oh, wow.
And he said, we also see a lot of guys that are professional grooms. They come over here, they say they're going to get married, they sleep with the girl, sometimes they impregnate her, and then they go home, then they come back and there's a different one. And then they keep doing, they just make a profession out of doing this, right? But it was funny to see those guys lay down the truth, the real truth that nobody was talking about, right?
Or a
And
different
laugh about it.
perspective.
Mm-hmm. And the guys were, and it was real cool too. The one guy, one of the taxi driver in particular, he was real cool. He was like, and how can you hold that against them? It's hard here. It's hard everywhere. So they found a way to make themselves through, and they're not really hurting. I mean, I guess they're taking their money or whatever, but the guys are willingly giving it. They're not robbing them, you know. The guys are giving the money up themselves or buying them crap or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, both parties are sort of consensually being...
Kind of like they deserve each other, right?
Yeah, right, yeah.
And I saw that said multiple times, is that these people deserve each other. You know, you got these 60-year-old men that want to dominate a 20-year-old female, and you got this 20-year-old female that just wants a bunch of material shit.
Wants a
that
sugar
she doesn't
daddy.
need. Yeah, that she doesn't need, right? So like they kind of belong together in a sense, right? But I said, so I thought that was really funny. But a lot of them were saying that they were very, very unhappy with the men in their country for the reasons
I saw
we
that a
started
lot
off.
too, yeah.
A lot of them said that. They drink too much. They cheat on their wives after they get married. They party too much.
They don't want to have kids. They don't want to be
They
family.
don't want relationships. They don't want family. They're not, so a lot of these things that get sold to them as Western culture, as American lifestyle, they think, wow, that sounds romantic. That sounds awesome. Why the hell? And they probably watch our movies too. I mean, they probably see all this
One
crap.
Patrick Swayze movie and it's all over.
Shit.
Don't put baby in the corner.
What is it? The Dirty Dancing, right? Oh man,
Well, it's been too long.
I hated that movie, man. But anyway, yeah, exactly. They see that kind of crap and they think that's how all of us are. And I mean, to a lesser degree, maybe we are that way to some degree. Maybe we are that way as a majority, as opposed to compared to their people, their men. I don't know. I don't been there. I've never been there, and I don't know their people. But we heard that a lot. Them say that. They also a lot of them said they were literally or genuinely looking for a better life. They just wanted to better themselves and have more opportunities. And that would be especially frustrating for the educated ones because their education will only allow them to go so far in their country. Can you imagine how frustrating that would be to be held back when you're capable of so much more, and not only on your looks, but also, I mean, you think about that here in America when you have a model gorgeous girl and she's extremely intelligent, dude, you can do whatever the hell you want in life.
Yeah,
I mean,
but these girls are a 10 or a 12 in Iowa and they're a 6 in Odessa. So it's not like, I don't imagine that they're getting like extra treatment, good or bad, by just their looks.
dude, being beautiful here, I'm talking about here in this country, being beautiful here, period, gets you far. Even if you're dumb as shit,
Yeah.
you just get more things.
Yeah,
I mean,
but back what you're saying earlier, and I think this is one thing I did notice through a couple of the interviews I saw was like, yeah, some of these girls are highly educated. They want to do something, they want to do more, and they live somewhere where their opportunities are really small.
yeah, and on top of that, women are not afforded the same opportunities there.
Absolutely.
They're held back.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that.
So
Yeah.
that's what I was going off of,
there's
yeah.
not as
Gotcha.
big of an equal rights movement for them to be able to
Yes.
move forward in a career.
Yes, so
or
if they can come
to-
over here, they know
yeah.
they can be stupid successful because they're smart
Yeah.
and beautiful. You
Yeah,
combine
and I mean,
those
it's just like,
together.
I've said this before, it's like anybody, like I look at artists a lot of times, like if you're an artist and you live in a small town and you've got your craft down to where you're really good at something and all of a sudden, okay, well, I've maxed out this market, where do I go next?
Yeah, exactly.
And people move around all the time for that. And I think it's the same kind of, ideology of like, I'm maxed out here, I want to do more with my life,
Or-
I want to go somewhere else.
Or you're in an area where there's so many artists doing the same thing, it's saturated. And in their
Yeah, so
case,
you wanna
they're
go
kind of
somewhere else.
saturated. I mean,
Absolutely.
there's a bunch of beautiful, educated women. Well, great. Now you're not that special here.
Right.
So you go somewhere
It's like
else.
being hot in LA,
Yeah, fuck, exactly. Exactly. You're sanding a beach, dude. You got
Right.
to go someplace where there's less sand.
right?
Let's see. And then there were a fair share of them looking to scam people. I mean, just legitimately to get everything.
Well, that's
they
going to be
could.
in both directions, I think.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we had already mentioned the shopping trips that they Glenn's pouring himself a glass of wine over here.
Right.
Sorry about
He's
the
thinking about the ladies pouring
vino,
a glass
man,
of wine.
The vino. And then the shopping trips that they kind of one guy he was extremely sexist from his interviews right off the bat, but he get one of the girls convinced him to go out and buy her a cell phone and a pair of dress and a pair of shoes or something like that, and he spent like $600 in one night. I was like, wait a minute. How dumb are you, dude? Why did you just do that? Like you did that to yourself, fool.
Right.
Don't complain about that. What you were expecting to sleep with
But
her
I'm
at the
sure,
end
yeah,
of it?
that's what the
that's probably
expectation
what it
was, yeah.
Damn, and then she took off right after that. I'm like, well,
That's what you deserve.
You're stupid. That's exactly what you deserve. And then some of them will just they want you to buy them jewelry and or give them cash. I mean, for whatever, either a service or nothing, just because
Yeah.
she's a pretty
What's I was
girl.
saying before? These girls get 4 or 5 guys a month on the hook, and pretty soon they're getting checks, sent in on a regular basis, and
Yep.
now they just, instead of making $80 a month, now they're making $800.
Yep. Yep. After a couple of rich guys send them just
Right.
a little bit of money, and really our money goes pretty far there too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I see strippers do that in America all day long.
Yeah, strippers can make a lot of damn money. Yeah, so definitely there's a lot of girls out there looking just to make money off of that, and then they tell their friends too, and their girlfriends tell, or hey, I did this, I'm doing this, you should check this out. I mean, it's pretty cool. And
Yeah, I mean, if you live somewhere where you don't have a lot of options too, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that changes people's mentality or what they're willing to do to survive.
Yeah, and it was really funny too to see some of the girls. They would show their houses or whether how they live or
Their
whatever.
flat.
Yeah, and their little like shitty little apartment, and then she's got like a $400 set of or a $400 pair of pumps that are high heels that are Kristen Door on the ground there. Like, dude, what the hell? That pair of shoes is worth more than everything you've got in this whole place. But yeah, they're after some of them are after extreme materialistic things that just make zero sense. Of course, then again, it's part of their business, right? If they look
Right.
good, they make more money, and then they can afford where they live. So it's like a tool to them. It's like a wrench in the toolkit. It's
Yeah.
like that's their wrench. Just happens to be a bright red pair of shoes.
A pair of fuck me pumps.
If that's exactly what they were too. Hell of bright red, dude. In that particular one I saw. Okay, Glenn, you had asked earlier. I only have one cost I was able to deduce, and it sounds to me like to get you there booked and everything you need baseline, like just to get the baseline stuff for the 10-day trip is about $5,000.
Okay.
So
That's less than I thought it would be.
that's actually not that expensive to travel somewhere international and stay for 10 days, and all things included. I believe it's not. I think it's your food, your lodging, your travel, your transportation, also all the trips that they take you on, because they do take you on some sightseeing. They take you to the socials. They bring you back.
That's very cheap.
It's actually not that bad,
Yeah,
right?
that's-
Now, I don't know if that's still the case.
Well, that may be another thing too, or the translation of the currency difference. In that
Yes.
country, maybe
and I believe it is.
$20,000.
I believe that the dollar is worth more than is it a rupee? I don't know what they use over there. So anyway,
Yeah, I can't remember.
whatever it is, it starts with an R, I think. But anyway.
Well, the Russian currency used to be rubles, but their government's
they're
been
anymore,
kind of fluctuating back and forth,
Okay.
and then also all
It's
these
probably the
countries have
Putin now.
separated. Yeah.
It's the
But
how many poots you got?
yeah, you still think the flight would be $1,200 just to get there. right?
However-
and then whatever the exchange rate is for the hotels and whatnot,
Unless they're
they've
doing
got.
some sort of a package deal, because when you do you get group rates when you do
Yeah,
big trips
that's
like
true.
that anywhere in the world. Yeah, so if you book through a travel agency, that's one of the ways travel agencies make money is if they're sitting there as a middleman and they say, man, if we can get 50 people all going to this, they don't know each other,
Yeah.
but if we can get 50 people booked up, we can book up one plane, we can make a deal with the airport,
wow.
with the airline.
And they do
we
it
can-
all the time. Travel
Oh, yeah.
agencies do it all the time.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
had buddies.
That's how they
that-
make their money.
Yeah, I've had buddies who go to Europe for like 5 weeks at a time and do like an expedition where they're on a bus the whole time, and it's a predetermined route, and they'll go to maybe 5 or 7 countries, and they pay like $2,500 or $3,500 for the
Yeah.
whole trip. It's inclusive.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So then the next step is, let's say all of this is as real as it's going to be for your experience there, and you end up finding somebody, and you are considering marrying this person. Well, the proposal and marriage is usually done first in the girl's home country. So you're there, you propose. You buy her a ring if you want, if you can afford that right now, or you give her something, right? Then usually you go home. You come back for another trip, not necessarily through the agency or through as a group. You come back just to see her, right? And then however many times you go through that, eventually it seems that they usually get married there with her family and in that country. After they do that, that kind of opens up a couple of options. Once they're married in the country, they can apply for an immigrant visa to bring her back, because they're a married couple as far as that country recognizes, and the U.S. apparently recognizes that to some degree to allow them to go for an immigrant visa. The other option is if they want to bring them to the U.S. to kind of sample living with this person, which in my opinion is why the hell wouldn't you do this? They can apply for what's called a K-1 or a fiancé visa. And that gives you 90 days in the U.S. It averages around $2,000. And apparently you can only do them twice in your whole life. Now, I don't know if that's me, the man. I can only apply for 2. I don't think that's the way it works. I think that individual from the other country can get a K-1 twice in their life. So basically, you can bring her over 2 90-day periods, and then you got to either shit or get off the pot.
The person entering the U.S. can only come in 2 times in their life.
Can only apply on a K-1, correct. That's what, as I understood it. That's what
And 90 days isn't that long.
No, you're talking a max of 6 well, that's 3 months, 6 months total.
You think it'd be easier to get a work visa where they could stay for like a year?
I don't know. Yeah, so I was reading about, or a tourist visa, or there's other visas you can apply for, but
for school.
Yeah, why does this? And everything I read about this focused on this fiance visa. It's like, well, I don't understand. Why wouldn't you go through some other avenues to get this person to stay here longer? I don't know why you would go through the fiance visa. You're just bringing a friend over.
Maybe it's faster or easier to get that.
Maybe it is. Maybe
it's
it's looked at differently. And there was a number. I want to say it was like 32,000 of these. If I remember, I didn't write it down. Something like 32,000 of these K-1 visas are issued every year. So there's a lot of people trying to bring. Now that's with respect to what did we say? There was 327 million people in the U.S. So 32,000 ain't nothing, right?
Yeah.
But whatever, that's still a lot.
Yeah, I know 2 people that married an American citizen and tried to come into the U.S.
Okay.
Yeah, and one was a student in the U.S., married an American, and was supposed to return home and come back, and that was like just a whole shit show with immigration issues. Sorry,
yeah, no,
off topic, but
that's what I heard too. Is what I read too is it is a nightmare trying to bring anybody into this country.
Well, I mean, think about like every time we've been to war, like Vietnam or Korea, things like that. You know, American soldiers go to another country or whatever, they meet somebody because they're spending a year there on a base or something. They start dating somebody and they want to bring her home.
Yep.
One of my best friends on the East Coast, his dad was in Vietnam and he was stationed in Japan for a year before he came back, and he met somebody because he was living there. He was working for the military and was living there. Met someone, started dating. They got married in Japan, and she wanted to come back, and they did. So I mean, that's pretty. It's pretty common in general.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. There's a lot of, especially when we have a big war like that. There, we end up having a lot, like a huge influx of mixed babies, from that exact situation.
And not even during wartime, as I understand it, that's still the case in like Okinawa and Korea. American service members go over there for their deployment duration
for a year or something, and they
and come back with a wife or whatever.
Yeah, I have a buddy that went to Korea to teach English. He was there for 8 years, and he married a Korean woman, and she lives here in California now.
Yeah.
And apparently, after 2 years, they get citizenship. 2 years of being married.
So that was something I wanted to ask about. So if they have to get married in the home country of, let's say, for example, the wife, do they have to get remarried in the U.S. or by someone who's ordained that's recognized by?
I think they just combine. I bet they just combine the paperwork with the visa, because to actually get married is just signing a document. You don't have to have church or any sanctions, nothing. It's just a document that's signed, right? That's why some people say they can just go down to the courthouse, right, and sign the papers. So that paperwork must get filled out. So recognized is kind of a loose term, right? It's not recognized until the U.S. gets their little paper signed and that, oh yeah, great. Now here's how you're going to bring this person over here. But I think you need to actually get married here in the U.S. and actually getting married here in the U.S. is signing the paper, which probably goes along with the K-1 visa. That's what I'm imagining. I don't know. I didn't look into that that deeply. But apparently, after 2 years, what I found from the K-1 Wikipedia post was after 2 years, citizenship is granted. So I was also reading that a lot of these relationships only last 2 years.
Yeah, but you have to get them here permanently for them to stay for 2 years. They can't come over on a K-1 for 2 years. They can only come over for 180 days.
Yeah, I don't think it gives you full citizenship the next process after the K-1 visa. I think there's a certain type of citizenship that isn't full. And I guess they get full citizenship after the 2 years. I don't know. That part really confused the hell out of me, and I honestly didn't have the time to research and how the logistics work of that. But
it's a lot of paperwork.
I had a buddy that tried to bring a chick back from Mexico, and it was nuts. And they ultimately gave up.
Wow.
Yeah, it was just, I'm sorry, this is too. America really doesn't want people from Mexico anymore. So they don't make it easy to legitimately. They should have just ran across the border too. I
Right.
mean, shit, dude. It probably would have had better success, but yeah, they ended up cutting it off. And like we kept telling us, what, dude, there aren't Mexican girls here? I mean, they're fucking everywhere.
But they weren't her.
They weren't her, man. She was
She was the
special.
one.
She was the one. She's not the one anymore.
And you know what? At the end of the day, this is all about love.
That's all about.
We're all just trying to find love,
Look
man.
at Tom,
Everybody's just trying to find
the
love.
the romantic in the group.
You know, if it was all about love, he could have gone back to Mexico.
That's
See,
true.
good point.
That's
His
true.
money. If he had a little bit of family money, he moved to Mexico. Now they're upper class.
Yeah, his very good job. He's an engineer here, so
See?
makes good money here. But she had nothing over there. She was poor, and what is he going to do over there? I guess he could have tried to do this anyway. That's a whole other topic. So let's talk a little bit about some quick misconceptions or things that I just thought were ridiculous on both sides. In particular, we're going way over on time here. That's awesome.
They're ridiculous on both sides. I can't even imagine where this list is going.
So mostly on the male side was where I wanted to start with, and I get maybe misconceptions was the wrong term to put on this, but I wanted to emphasize that how in the hell does anybody think this is going to work? I mean, these people are
Desperate.
They're saying that they're looking for love, right? They really think they're going to fall in love in 10 days.
Looking for love in all the wrong places.
Exactly. The amount of cultural differences, which we already kind of touched on or whatever. How would you don't have anything in common with this
I
person?
can't even date a girl from the other side of town.
Nothing in common with this person, right? And we had only mentioned, I mean, you can't even understand, not only can you not understand the language, that's an easy given, right? You also can't understand the body language. You can't understand the spoken language, the influctuations in the spoken language. It's extremely hard to read what this person really believes, feels, they're just shoving you a bunch of shit. And what was even cooler was one of the, to add to that, one of the translator situations we were watching in one of these documentaries, right? It was funny, they made it a point to show the translation, show what the translator was translating between the two of them, and they had subtitles for the Russian part of it, right? And she completely murdered what this guy was saying, and it ended up being he was saying that he was describing, I know what it was. He was describing that he had just seen Motley Crue in concert. I'm like, oh, you old fat, you fuck, dude. That's of course you just went and saw Motley Crue, right? So that translated to the translator that he sings in a band. So he said he saw Motley Crue sing because he just saw him in person. And the translator tells the girl he sings in a band. And she looks at him like, what? He sings in a band? What does he sing? And it goes back and forth to the point where she starts asking him to sing along to the music that's playing at the bar.
And he's probably like,
and
what
he's
in
like,
the hell?
what? It was great, right? And then to make it even more funny, they took it away from that and they interviewed the translator and the girl separately and asked them. So they asked the girl, "What did you think of the translator?" "Oh, she's awesome. She's done a great job, very accurate, and I feel like I have a good idea of what this guy's saying."
Because he's the singer from Motley Crue.
And she had no idea what he was talking about. I was like, so that is a perfect example of how ridiculous this really is when you get down to the nitty gritty of it. I mean, the mechanics of it, right?
Wow.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
and I think you and I saw one of the same documentaries when they were in Odessa, and there was the one guy from not New Zealand, Australia, and he was a pretty normal, decent-looking guy.
Yeah.
And one of the women that worked at the agency came up and said, "Oh, he's really popular. Girls really like him.
Yeah.
because he's not 300 pounds.
Yeah, he was
and
he
some
was
dirty,
younger,
hairy
too.
fucking retard.
Yeah,
you
he
know
was
what I mean?
younger too. I remember.
Yeah, he was a
only
younger
like
guy, had
35
his
or
shit
something.
together.
Yeah.
He looked decent. He had a nice haircut.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
And they made multiple comments about how good looking he was. Apparently,
Right?
in Odessa, they like Australian guys. So if we have any Australians out there, you might have good luck in Russia because they made that. Yeah, if we have any listeners from Australia, I don't think we do. But
Come on, mate, give it a shot.
Yeah, that's right. Apparently, they really like Australian guys because they made multiple comments on multiple of the documentaries.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, cool. I mean, to me, Australians just look like white Americans, but
Yeah.
they have a cool accent.
But they have a different culture.
Oh, absolutely,
You know, so
absolutely,
they're
yeah.
just they're a different personality.
They got to be. When you're dodging scorpions and tarantulas the size of your head, you're going to be a different kind of person.
Their frogs will fucking kill you over
That's
there,
what
dude.
I'm
It's
saying.
ridiculous.
Dude, their
frogs.
ants will carry your babies away.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's gonna add a little bit of character to you, you know. Okay, so that was the male misconceptions I wanted to. And then the fact that I think that a lot of it seemed to me like the guys didn't realize in one of the documentaries I saw in particular how much you had to pay for this stuff. I mean, it just kept coming, man. It was just all of this more.
Well, I can imagine, you sign up for this and you go there and you think this is all inclusive, and you get there and you're like, oh, that's cool. Oh, that's extra.
Yeah.
Oh, that's extra. Oh,
Yeah.
So that they can just nickel and dime you to death the whole time you're there.
I bet if
and
you just
a
stayed-
$5,000 trip turns into $60,000.
I bet if you just stayed in the hotel and did nothing, you'd probably be fine and just be buying your dinners or whatever. But if you start going out, especially then it becomes wooing a woman anywhere in the world. I mean,
Which costs money.
It costs money. It doesn't matter how non-materialistic she may be. The fact that you're taken out to dinner means you're spending money you wouldn't be spending otherwise. So I've gotten in that conversation with a few girls too. It's like, no, it doesn't cost. But yes, it really does, because I wouldn't be at dinner right now.
Right.
I'd be at home eating my can of tuna and a sandwich,
And crying.
and crying by myself with episodes of Rick and Morty on. I mean, maybe having a beer with one of my buddies.
This is my life.
and that's why we do it.
Maybe if I could just get a mail order bride.
Yeah, next thing you know-
$60,000. Fuck.
Next thing you know,
That's really what she looks like.
Next thing you know, we're making podcast episodes about it, right? Really, I brought this topic up because I just want to see what you guys would think about it, because I'm about to head to Odessa next month. So,
So you really did sign up.
yeah, no, that's great.
All I can say is take a lot of pictures.
Yeah, really. He's like, I want proof. Bring me back pictures. All right. So there was a lot of misconceptions I saw too on the girls' side, and I think it was more about how the guys viewed. They thought the guys viewed them. And I saw a number of them say, I heard a number of them say that everybody thinks that they're so poor there and they're so unhappy. They're like, no, I'm not unhappy. I love my life and I love my country. And I'm just hoping for love, or I'm just hoping for money, or I'm just hoping for whatever.
Well, we've talked about this before. A lot of women have a biological clock, and they want to have a family, or they want to have children or something. So those are very natural, normal things for people to want. And when you live somewhere where you don't really have that option, again, if people get into desperation, whether they want love or they want to have children or they want to have a family or whatever it is that they want, if it becomes a desperate situation, they'll try a lot of weird extremes that maybe they wouldn't have entertained before.
Yep. So we had already mentioned this a little bit, but I want to give a little background. Most live poorly, but are not necessarily unhappy, and most are in the 18 to 25 age range, so kind of biological clock age at the end of that, but not really so much yet. Most are well educated. However, many of them, from what I saw, again, this is all from what I gleaned from these documentaries, have never even had a serious relationship before. There's not men to date, and a lot of them talked about the competition is ridiculous because you've got a few guys that are attractive, and all these attractive girls are going for it. The guy's going to be with as many girls as he can be with.
It goes back to a statement earlier you're saying about how the men in Odessa cheat. Well, why would you not?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. That's why they're cheating, because they're
I'm not saying that I'm a piece of shit here, but I'm just saying if you live in a country where there's 4 women to 1 guy and you're a decent looking dude, and there's
there's
all
a
these,
lot of sand at the beach.
right? I mean, come on.
Yeah, you're right. That would be tough to deal with, and so therefore that's what's lending to they're not having serious relationships. They're having fucked and chucked type stuff, right?
Right.
They're just moved.
What'd you call it?
Fucked and chucked. They're getting moved through because the guys are cheating so much. So
Absolutely.
So, but what scares me about that situation is not unlike it scares me about meeting a younger girl here that has never had a serious relationship. It's like, do you think you want these things, but do you even know what you're asking for?
Right.
You don't. You have no frame of reference here. You're out of your element.
Well, yeah, you're out of your element, Donnie.
you're out of your element, Don. It's just
Donna.
Donna. That's what I was looking for. I was like, you're out of your element here, Donna.
Donnie Natasha.
Natalia. It's just they don't even know what they're asking for to some degree. They just think,
But that's the fantasy. I mean,
It's
and
the
you,
fantasy.
and you look at the way it's sold in America too. It's the knight in shining armor is going to roll up on his white horse and take you to beauty
That's it.
land, and everything in your life is going to be perfect, and you're going to have a
it.
white picket fence, and
Yep.
I mean, it's the
2.5
same
children.
crap, man.
Yep. Yes. So that really disturbs me because they really don't know what they're even asking for, some of them, or what they think they're after. And yet you're now not only are you playing into a situation, you can't read the situation because you don't speak the language by all those other reasons. You're also playing into a situation for somebody who doesn't know what the hell they're after either.
Right.
I mean, that's scary. Now, don't get me wrong, that can kind of be the case here too, but you got a lot of combined things here, that are stacking up, not looking, like a healthy choice.
Right.
Not the frozen
First
dinner, by the way.
first thing is you hop on a plane and went to the other side of the country,
Other
other
side
side
of
of
the
the
world?
world
Yeah.
to try to hook up. So does that mean that everybody in the country you live in is so repulsed by you that you have to go to another country?
Damn, I don't know, but See, I don't want to go down that path because I've been single a while and I'm still not married, so I start to feel like, damn.
Did you get fucked and chucked, buddy?
Oh man.
That's what he's hoping for.
Yeah, I don't think women outnumber men here, so I don't know about
No,
all
but
that,
I mean, it's hard. It's tough for people to not be vulnerable in these situations, and I'm a kind of a little more of a callous human in general, and I'll admit it. Dating is great, it's fine, or whatever. If I'm not dating somebody, or I'm alone, or I'm by myself, whatever, I'll just do what I need to do in my life. I don't really care. It doesn't bother me. But a lot of people, I have friends that just fall apart when they're single, and they'll get desperate in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, chill out, man. Enjoy some life, travel, go visit some friends, do something. Actually pay your bills off, and get your shit straight before you throw it to somebody else in this hopeful romantic relationship you know nothing about. But people are so desperate to be in love or married or all these things that they've been sold to them. We've talked about this over and over in several different podcasts. People are thrown this ideology, this fantasy life about you got to have the 2.5 kids and the perfect house and all that stuff. So the world is getting taught this. Everybody is getting told this. So the fact that when somebody's alone, people get really, really discouraged. They get really, lonely.
It's those damn romantic comedies. Those
I know,
TV shows,
man.
man.
Watching
keeping
Patrick
up with the
Swayze
Joneses,
movies.
man.
They tear me up inside, dude. It's horrible.
But the thing is, and I say this to all my single friends all the time, it's like, dude, when you're single, enjoy that time.
Yeah.
Because
Personal growth.
personal growth, because you can sit there and complain all day long, oh, I'm not meeting nobody. Well, the reason you're not meeting somebody is because you're putting this cloud of darkness around you and it's blocking everybody.
Yeah.
If you want to meet somebody awesome, do things that you love that are awesome,
Yeah.
and other people will start to fall into that mode. Just live. That's the best way to meet somebody or do something or grow as a person. Just live.
Yep. I like it. I'd like to end it on that, but we got to add one more thing. So Tom had already mentioned that he knew some people that this had worked for, right? I was talking to a couple of my coworkers, and one of them was telling me a story about that she had a coworker who went and tried to do this, right? And he went over there, he met somebody, back and forth, he went over again, they're conversing the whole time, paying the money out for all of this. And it was a series of large excuses why she never came over here. Some of these people, some of these guys will maintain these relationships long distance wise for years. And that's not just like, in 10, 20, 30, whatever days it didn't work out. No, some of these guys will really stay on this. And all the while they're spending money, either giving it to
nothing
her,
else to do,
getting nothing out of it. And she was saying that like the first time it was her mom got sick, and then the second time her dad had a stroke, she was going to come and she had to stay there permanently. Now, ultimately, she bailed. And he never got the ring back. He never got any of the money back. They just bleed you along until they find something better, or they just get tired of dealing with it, or whatever. Because it would be a job, right? You'd have to emotionally feed this the situation you're in, to keep milking it for as much money as you can get out of it. And
well, especially I think in a lot of these situations, these people again are back to that mode over there. They're in love with this photo of somebody that they think that's who they're talking to.
Yeah.
Could be some dude in Nigeria.
Well, no, I'm talking about ones that have actually met. But you're right. Yeah. That can happen too, right? But I mean, it's the same concept though. It's the same. What you just said is exactly the same. You can go out there and meet her. And I mean, one of the videos I saw was they were showing that pageant thing, right? And there was this like total nerdy older Asian dude, and he said he had never had a girlfriend, never been married, whatever. And he's sitting here like he's got his arm around two of these ridiculously gorgeous girls, right? They're in bikinis and they're shoving their tits in his face. He's having the time of his life. He's just blown away by this, right? So he could leave. A person like that could leave in love with more than the image. Mm-hmm. He's in love with what he actually had in front of him.
He wants more.
And who the hell wouldn't?
But he still has a fantasy that's not realistic about what his expectations are from that exchange.
You can have that same fantasy down at the strip club too, if you so desire.
It's the same concept, or it's the same.
Minus the traveling.
Yeah,
it's a car ride instead of a plane ride.
Yeah, maybe he likes planes.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe. All right. Anything else to add left? You guys got anything else?
No,
right,
not unless you give us a report when you come back.
Yeah, I'll let you. About I'm not even going to say that.
Odessa Nights with Ben.
Sounds like a whole Instagram post right there.
We'll be following you.
Nice. All right, guys. Hope you find that enjoyable, if not interesting, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for listening. Show notes and other info can be found at our website, greatdistraction.com. The Great Distraction is listed in iTunes, and we greatly appreciate it when our listeners take the time to look us up and leave us a 5-star rating and review. That helps our show grow and motivates us to continue producing content. If you'd like to get in contact with us, you can do so using the email address greatdistractionpodcast@gmail.com or via our website. We're always interested in hearing any thoughts, comments, or questions from our listeners. Keeping up on the latest from us can be done in several different ways. You can add us to your favorite RSS feed tracker. The link is available on our website or in iTunes. Or you can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Just search for Great Distraction, one word, no space. As always, thank you for listening, and thank you for all the support.